Welcome back to the Circuit Revival, where today the eagle-eyed among you may recognize this OLED switch here. So this is the OLED switch that magically got fixed in a previous episode, which I'll stick up here. And basically the Wi-Fi on it has stopped working. So we'll be looking at fixing the Wi-Fi. So I'll just turn it on and just show you what I mean. So here we are, and you can see in the top the Wi-Fi is not on. So if we go into system settings and then into internet settings, gives us an error code 21101118. And my understanding is this is an issue with the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi chip, and there's nothing it can do for it, so it won't see it. It'll still show you what's on there, and it's odd it gives you a MAC address. But this is usually down to one of two things. Either the cables have come undone, the antennas, or the Bluetooth chip itself is gone. Now, I don't imagine it's the cables on this. I feel like it's likely to be the actual chip itself. So let's get this open and see if we can sort it. Okay, so I've just got the back plate off here, and as we can see, the actual antennas themselves are not knocked off. They're absolutely fine, and they're still attached on. So I do believe this is going to be an issue with the chip, so I'll continue getting the back off and jump back in a second. Okay, so I've got the board out and I've got the cover off of where the Wi-Fi chip is. So let's get the scope round and have a look at this a bit closer. Okay, so here we are under the scope looking at the Wi-Fi chip. Now it's quite hard because this is really shiny, but you can sort of see in the top right hand corner there is the triangle here, and there's also a dot on the board there. Now my understanding is there is two different types of these chips. I'm just trying to see which one this is. So CYW456X. So I think there's two different types. So we'll just take a look down the side as well. Because this isn't working. So I can't see anything down there. Obviously there's not a lot of room to see, but you can see it's a BGA chip here. We can see there are a lot of balls just along here. So I'm going to double check and see whether I have actually got a stencil for this quickly. Okay, so here we go. This is the stencil I've got. It's the little switch stencil. That's got all the different ones on there. It's a bit dirty, so it needs a bit of a clean up to begin with, but I do have a stencil for this, which is good. So I've just looked through my parts bin, and I've got this Nintendo Switch Lite board, and looking at the Wi-Fi chip here, I'll see if I can try and get this in shot. There we go, we can see CYW4356X, and then back to the OLED board, we can see there 4356X. So I believe they are the same chips there. So we're going to start by trying to get this one off the board. So this is the one on the donor board. So it's the one that's obviously going to cause less problem because this board is scrap anyway. So if anything goes wrong taking it off, it's not too bad. I can get a little bit of practice in there trying to get it off. So we'll lift it up. We'll then try reball it, and then we'll take the one off of the OLED switch, try and get this back on, and then see where we are. The only difficulty with these, it's so hard to see where pin 1 is on them because of the shiny surface. So let's try and work out a comfortable position for this. Okay, I'll get this set up and then we'll try and get this off. Okay, so here we are set up ready for it. So sorry it's not quite in the middle, but there's reflections off of it otherwise, so it's the best way to do it. So I think this is the best way to do it, and I can come in and grab here. Now the only thing I'm slightly concerned about is there is some sort of like white stuff around here, so I'm just slightly concerned that maybe there's some corrosion under this chip. And it feels like there's some sort of damage on it anyway. No, that's all right. As I say, there might be some corrosion under this. This is from a donor board. I don't know what's wrong with it, but we'll try and lift this chip up. I don't think it's necessary, but I'm going to try and add some flux just in case. And here's the chip. So it came off reasonably well. My tweezer slipped slightly as it came off, so it sort of flew a bit, but looks okay. I don't see any sort of major corrosion. There's some weird sort of discoloration, but I can't tell if that's just the light or not, or whether that's normal. So we'll next get this cleaned up. So I will get a chip holder, probably make this a bit easier. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding some leaded solder to this. It will help me remove the solder that's on it, because the solder that's on it will be unleaded. And now I'm just going to come in with some solder wick and see if we can just wick this all up. Okay, I think I'm just going to try and increase the temperature of my iron slightly. So next we just need to line this up with the stencil. So I think it goes this way up. And then we'll just get some solder paste. Try not to move this as we apply this. Okay, we have our solder paste there now. So then I'm going to try and take my tweezers and hold this down in place so it doesn't move. I'm just going to come back in with my hot air and we'll try and blow this. Okay, that did look like it moved, but it might be all right. I'm hard to tell. I can't quite see fully because the reflections whether some of these balls down in the middle there are joined. But we'll just come in with some flux and then we'll flow these again and hopefully they'll be all done, which will be the quickest and easiest reballing I think I've ever done. I think sadly 2 of those balls did join together, just these 2 here. Yeah. So we'll clear this off and retry that, but it went fairly well for a first attempt. So let's get this back off and we'll try that again. Yeah, so you can see just here these balls joined together sadly. So we just have to clean this up and try this again. I'm going to and try and remove these balls. Yeah, so I'm still pretty concerned about that top corner there. It still doesn't look very good, but we'll give this another go. Now I can't see again whether they've joined together or whether that's just flux on the chip. Looks like it might just be flux. So we'll try reflow this then, try and get these balls nice and round. They look nice and uniform, so we'll put this chip off to the side for now. And then what we need to do is try and get the chip off of the OLED board. As I say, this one's going to be the one that's slightly more difficult because we need to make sure we don't do anything wrong, and then we need to clear up the pads on this afterwards. So I think I'm going to go for the same approach and try and grab from here. So I'll just get this lined up ready. Okay, here we are all set up, ready to take this off. So I think I'm going to come in from the heat from the left side again, one, because it makes it a bit easier for me hand-wise. And secondly, there is sort of some plasticky components here and here that I don't want to melt. So I'm just going to come in from the side here and then try and grab it from here. And then we need to clear up the pads on the board and then try and get the new chip back on. Okay, so that didn't come off as cleanly as I would like, and you can see I knocked a capacitor up here, which I'm just trying to work out the best way to get to because I can't quite get underneath there to ping it forwards. So what I'm trying to think, I might try and grab hold of it, lift it up and then place it back down. I think that's the better option. But other than there's a solder ball here that needs to go, so I need to clean that up. So we'll try and see if we can just get that with the soldering iron and just tap it. We just want to remove whatever that solder ball is, because it's going to bridge those two components. There we go, it looks like it's gone. And now we'll come in with some wick onto the board and try and get rid of all the solder on the board. Now this is where I need to be really careful because I don't want to knock any components, and this is a very small space. So I'm going to try and use just like a point of my solder wick here. So what I think I'm going to do then is I think I'm just going to add some leaded solder to the board here as well to help try and lift it up a bit easier. So I'll get some more flux. I've got my leaded solder. I'm just going to mix this in on the board. I'm going to boost my iron again just to make sure it doesn't get stuck. So next we need to try and get this capacitor back into place. I think I'm going to grab hold of it, try and lift it up, and then twist it into place afterwards. So we'll try that now. That's what I was worried about. So the capacitor slipped out of my tweezers and got taken by the air. I'm just trying to see whether it fell underneath at all. No, it looks like that is gone. I'll try and see if I can work out what value that is. No, I'll have a little look around. I don't think I'm gonna be able to find it though. No, so that is gone forever. So what I'll do is I'll try and look and see if I can find out what the value for that capacitor is. But it might not be important. It might just be for some kind of decoupling or filtering. So I think what we'll try and do is just get the new chip back on and see whether it works. The hard part we're going to have is, like I say, it looks like this corner of this chip is damaged. So it's going to be hard to tell whether it's because the chip is damaged or whether it's because that cap is missing if it doesn't work. So I think we'll just have to try it out and see what happens. So what I'll start with is I'm going to put a tiny layer of flux down on the board, and I'm just going to spread it around a bit. There we go, it has a very small layer of flux. And now I need to try and work out which way around this chip goes. So if I can try and see the dot. Okay, it looks like it does go this way. So what I'll do then is I'll bring my air all the way down. And I'm going to bring my temperature up slightly. And we're just going to go over this very slowly until it looks like it's in place. So what I've done is I've taken my nozzle off as well to try and spread the heat out so it's not blowing straight at it so it doesn't get knocked off the board. Obviously with the leaded solder it should melt a bit quicker. Like I say, I'm still a bit annoyed about that cap there. So what we're going to try and hopefully see is this sort of move into place. I'm going to slowly increase my air. So I've given it a little bit of a nudge and it doesn't move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with sort of higher speed with some flux, and I've put the nozzle back on the air station here. So hopefully we can just flow this down into place. Okay, so we definitely saw it jump there. It did move. I don't know if it moved a bit sort of like too much, which meant that it's not going to be sort of soldered in place properly, but we'll try clean this up a bit to begin with, and we'll give it a test. Like I say, it might not work because of the chip. It might not work because that capacitor is missing, but overall, it's certainly on there. So we'll just come in and clean this up a bit. Try and get rid of all of this flux because there is a lot. Especially around that aerial connector there, because that's every chance that flux gets in there, it's not going to work anyway. Okay, let's give this a test then. Okay, I think we are together enough to test this out now. I'm not sure how confident I feel on this in all fairness. With the sort of chip looking component, that missing capacitor, I'm not massively confident, but let's find out. We'll try plug it in, get the battery in. Nothing's gone bang so far. Let's try power this on. Does it still turn on? Okay, we still get power. That is a good start. Does it turn on? Get the boot logo. So far, so good. Okay, it loads. Do we get Wi-Fi? No. No, so it's still not working. But there's every chance that is due to that chip being damaged. So I think what we'll do then is we'll try and see if we can find out what that capacitor is first of all, because I feel like that's probably the easiest step to fix here, is get that capacitor back on to begin with. So I'll have a look and see if I can find out what value that capacitor is. Okay, so as I was thinking about that, I just realized I probably don't need to, because I know that the Wi-Fi sort of circuit looks about the same. So I've got the switch donor board that I've got here, and if we take a look at it, so if we take a look at it, it looks very similar to the other board, and we have the capacitor here. Now, I think the difference is this covers these parts on the other board. So I think maybe I should be able to just come in and take this capacitor off the board here. The main thing is just to make sure I don't lose it when I've lifted it up. Yeah, I'm just going to try and tin these pads up and get this replacement capacitor back in place. Rather, I need to move over. So I've just tinned the pads up for the new capacitor to go back on. I've taken one off of the donor switch that we were using for the Wi-Fi chip. And I've got it in here. This thing is absolutely minuscule. I don't think I can even quite get across how tiny this thing is. So I'm going to try and see if I can get a good grip on it. Okay. I'll get my hot air. I'm going to reduce down the air slightly just in case I drop it. Okay, that's attached. Now just to flow it into place. Yeah, there we go. So we've tried replacing the capacitor there. So we'll give this little clean up again. And then we'll give it another go with the capacitor replaced and see if it makes any difference. If not, I have another donor board here with another Wi-Fi chip. We'll give this one a go because this one doesn't look like any of the corners are damaged. So we'll give it a go. Okay, so we replaced the capacitor and I've got it all sort of semi back together again. So we'll double check, make sure it still turns on. Still does turn on, that's good. Let's see whether it was the capacitor that was causing the issue. If not, we'll try reball another Wi-Fi IC. Okay, system settings, internet settings. Nope. So let's try a different IC. Okay, so I fast forwarded through just a little bit here. So I've taken the new replacement IC off of the donor, and I've taken the old donor replacement one off of the OLED board. So we're still on the OLED board. So we'll just clean up the pads here, then we'll clean up the chip, and then hopefully get it back on nice and easily, and hopefully be all good. And I don't want to tear any pads. Just on the other side. Here we have the chip. So we will just get some more flux and braid ready, and we'll just wick this away. Okay, that felt like it went pretty well. So let's try and see if we can lift this up. There we have it. So we just need to add a bit more flux to this. Don't need that much, but we'll do. And we'll just try to hold this in place again and just reflow those balls. Okay, so we just need to try and line this up again. I know we were a little bit too low last time. Yeah, I think that's about right. Yeah, like in place, a little more flux. And we'll increase our FSD. Okay, that felt like it went a lot better, if I'm being honest. We saw it sort of like snap over. I didn't knock anything, so... And this chip doesn't look sort of damaged like the last one did, so I'm feeling fairly confident with this one. If this doesn't work, then I don't know what the problem is, so we'll come in and give this a clean. Okay, let's get this together again and give it another test. And we're back together again, so let's give this another test. Still turn on, so we've not damaged it anymore. That is good. It boots. Seems like it's hanging on that for a while though. That doesn't seem good. We'll open it up. We'll go in system settings, internet settings. No, so we still get the error. Okay, so I'm just jumping back in. I was actually about to close down this video and claim that it was unfixed and that I didn't know what it was, but I thought I'd have one quick look around the board, just try and work out what it was, because I think those kind of Wi-Fi chip replacements went well, which was a little sad that it didn't work. So I've come around the board and I've spotted this. Now, I don't know to you, but that looks like two completely smashed to pieces capacitors. So I'm wondering whether this is the problem. Because if we remember correctly, the original fault with this was that it wouldn't turn on. I'm wondering whether originally maybe these capacitors were shorted together and that's the problem. And then where we kind of cleaned it out the first time, it released that short and it allowed it to turn on. But because these capacitors are broken, it won't work with the Wi-Fi. So I'm fairly certain they are damaged. So I think what we'll do is we'll get our multimeter on them and see whether they register as like a short or if they just don't register anything. So just in the top left-hand corner just here is the meter. So what we'll probably expect to see from these if they're shorted is a beep. Okay, we get absolutely nothing to it. Let's see if we get any resistance through them. Okay, so we're in resistance mode. Do these caps show any resistance whatsoever? So they are showing a reading. So what I think I might try and do then is, without losing them, which is a strong possibility at this stage, I'm going to try and retin the ends. If the ends don't retin, then they're missing. Then maybe they are okay. Okay, I'm still not sold on those, but we'll continue looking around the board and I might come back to it in a second because they still look like they're missing the ends to me. Maybe the Wi-Fi IC isn't down all the way. Does it look a bit wonky, maybe? So we could try reflow it because maybe it's not as flat as it should be. No, so I don't see anything other than these capacitors that look a bit odd. That look like they're sort of missing their ends, but again, I'm still not fully certain on that. suppose what we can do is just try and see if we put hot air on it, what happens, whether they just sort of like flow into place normally or not. And then we'll probably just give the Wi-Fi chip a reflow, see whether that sits any flatter as well. May completely regret this decision, but we'll see. Yeah, so I'm going to say that has lost its end. You can see it doesn't look like it's got the silver bit on both sides. And I think if I move this out of the way slightly and find it, when we look at the board, that there I think is the end of the capacitor. I think they've both done it. So I think they've both sort of semi-corroded away. So I think that's missing its end, and I think they both are. So let me try and see if I can work out what value these should be, and if any of the donor boards or anything I have will actually have them on them. Okay, so I don't know whether I have any replacements, but I do have these two on this board, which looks like it's in basically the same position. I know they're oriented slightly different, but it's a different board, but can't imagine they'll be too different in value. So I think we might just try swap those on. So let's try and get this other one off as well. So this one looks even more sort of obvious. You can see there it's missing the end. So we'll put that one with the other one. And then let's take a look at the board. Yeah, so I think you can see on the board the missing bits of the caps on there. So let's see if we try and add some solder, whether we can remove them. Okay, so there's the pads ready. Let's see whether we can get these off of the other board then. So I think I'm going to try and do them one at a time, so I stand a lesser chance of losing them. I wouldn't say a full chance, but definitely lesser. So let's try and get one of these off. Okay, I think they're on, but I am just going to come back in with the iron just to tap the edges just in case. Yeah, so you can see, for example, that one clearly not on. Let's try and see if we can get that. Might be able to use hot air just to nudge it down. And see if we can just reflow that because it's not quite sat down properly. Now we just hope we've not melted any plastic. And that side looks good. Now this side. Looks good as well. Okay, they certainly look a lot healthier now. So I think we're going to try and get this back together again. I don't think I'm going to reflow the Wi-Fi IC chip yet, just in case, because that definitely looked like a bigger problem, and I'm fairly certain they were broken. So if they are broken, they're going to stand a bigger chance of causing a problem than maybe the Wi-Fi IC, because they felt like the replacements of those went quite well. Okay, let's see whether it still turns on then, because working around that area could have caused a bigger problem. So we have the logo. Get the Nintendo Switch logo. Still feels like that stays on for quite a while though. But it turns on. Let's go back into settings. internet settings. No, so that's still not working. So what I think we'll do then is we'll just try reflow the Wi-Fi IC. If that doesn't do anything, then we will call it there. So here we are back at the Wi-Fi IC, and I think it does look a little bit wonky, so I think we will try reflow it. Okay, so we'll add some flux. Let's try reflow this in place. Hopefully we see it move. See if that's any flatter now. Okay, that definitely looks flatter. Look at the balls, they all look like they're definitely connecting a lot better. So we can let this cool down a bit. We'll give it a clean, and then we'll go for our final test. Okay, so we're fully together, because if this doesn't work now, I'm out of ideas in all fairness. So we've reflowed the Wi-Fi IC, we swapped out those caps that look damaged. Let's see whether A, it still turns on, and whether that reflow fixed it. Nintendo logo. Nintendo Switch logo. And again, it still feels like it hangs on there a little bit too long. Okay, that went off a bit quicker that time. System settings, internet settings. Yes! Amazing. Okay, so I don't know which one it fixed it, but definitely the reflow I think helped there. But let's not celebrate too quickly. Let's see if this can connect. Okay, so that is connected to the internet, and you can see the Wi-Fi symbol in the top corner there. I didn't think we were going to fix this one. Now, what is amazing is I'd actually finished the video, and I'd actually done a conclusion. So I had added to the no fix for this. So what I'm going to do to begin with is take that off of the no fix, and then we get to put that back on the fix. That brings us 28 to 12, so 40 episodes in total there, and we're on a good run. So I guess thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.